everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Optimism Show. Today we have Navin, the Chief Brain of IQ.wiki. Navin, welcome.
It's great to be here. I'm very excited. We got a lot of cool stuff cooking.
Yeah, amazing. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and actually especially discussing the topics around some amazing projects that you're building with IQ and also the future of the AI agents and how do you see how are you playing in that role, and as well as I know you're working on some amazing collaborations with Fractal as well and the Superchain, which is really exciting topics that we'd love to cover. But before we get started, you just announced on the 12th of December, so last week, about the IQ ATP platform and practically how it's real time compared to other agents and other AI platforms. So how it can take large data from websites and provide real time information. I'm really curious, as you were developing this, and what is your goal, and can you tell us a bit more about the ATP platform and how will it make the lives of everyone really much easier?
Yeah, great question. So IQ ATP is something that we came up with basically because we wanted to create agents that are actually sovereign, that can control their own assets, that can really be capable of the next level. Because right now we have a lot of great agents, but they're not really agents. They're more like, some people would say, I guess, glorified bots because they're basically very similar to bots in the sense is that you have a developer who controls an API. So, a lot of them are using, for example, like OpenAI or something like that as the API. And basically, it's just something that's controlled by the developers that can answer people's questions, can, make some funny jokes on Twitter. And so, we've kind of, right now, we're in the stage of agents as entertainment. We want to move to a stage where agents can operate the same way as a human and can actually handle tasks, and even better than a human, in my opinion, because you can trust. I'd much rather trust an AI than trust a human. For example, like all of us, anyone who's working with Optimism, anyone who's working with ETH, we like dexes. We much prefer a decentralized exchange to a centralized exchange. I'd much rather have to trust the code than to trust a human to do my transactions and to ensure the custody of the assets. Because right now, there are a couple of AI agents where you can send them your money, you can send them ETH, but the problem is it's fully controlled by the dev. We want to move to a world where the AI agents are actually capable of handling the assets, where they are provably independent from the developer, so you can tell exactly what model they're using. You can tell the outputs are actually on chain, you can verify that. So we would be, posting that data using Fractal, which is on Optimism as part of the Superchain. So that's kind of one where we want to see this go. And the reason why is because then you can really have these capabilities of people trusting the AIs the same way that you trust a DEX to do a swap. You could trust the AI to execute on strategies. Like, for example, a lot of people in this audience, you guys are probably stakers. You're probably staking single tokens. You're probably providing liquidity. All of this stuff is pretty complicated. It takes a lot of time. And right now, there's not really a good solution for that. And the reason why is because it's not simply a matter of smart contracts. I think you need AI to get to that next level. And you can't really trust these entertainment agents. And they just don't have the capabilities for that yet. So we wanted to build a launcher where people can launch these DeFi capable agents. So something that's really unique in terms of the capabilities and really taking it to another level.
So really, you're focusing on the DeFi side of agents, and I completely agree with you. Staking, and especially staking, and finding out what are the best rates and everything. Due to its complexity, is actually putting off a lot of people to even enter the space, to enter the DeFi space, because even if you compare it to the massive crypto space, the DeFi is just a small segment. Of course, uh like very wealthy segment, but relatively small. So there's not many opportunities due to its complexity. So it's an amazing that AI agents would be able to take that and really help people out and make the entire journey a lot easier. And knowing that you don't have to spend 10 hours a day researching.
Exactly. So yeah, that's one of the things that I think will be key for this platform to make it different. And the sovereignty aspect is also exciting. I think it makes it more interesting. Also, in terms of building on top of these agents. So, for example, right now, you wouldn't really want to build on top of an agent in case that the API just shuts down one day. You're going to be in a lot of trouble. So, the other aspect is composability. Like once you have agents that are actually operating on chain, that the outputs are actually on chain, then people can build on top of it and build their own agents kind of related to these agents. And you can build a whole ecosystem rather than like having 1,000 meme agents which are completely independent of each other. Like you can actually build a real ecosystem. Like if one guy has a bridging agent or one guy has a lending agent, they can all kind of work together if we have these properties.
It's fantastic. And so, two questions over there, especially as right now the agents are going to be more, let's say, like more decentralized. Like, how do you handle that aspect of the equation? Like, how do you handle that the dev doesn't really fully control the agent, but the agent has like true sovereignty?
Yeah, so what we're thinking of is basically that when you launch the agent, portion of the token supply will go right to the agent. So that way, from day one, like as soon as you launch the agent, it will have that ownership. We're planning in terms of the rollout, we're planning it for it to be like reserved because initially when we first launch, it's not going to necessarily have that property right away. But the plan is basically it will have that reserve of assets so that in the future it's able to interact and able to build on that. Yeah, and then basically that's kind of like in terms of the technology, what we're working on with Frax is this proof of inference concept. So that's going to be part of Fractal that we're working with them in terms of the underlying technology to ensure that the inference is actually happening on chain and the outputs are on chain, and then that's verifiable. So that'll be something that we're working on with Frax with the proof of inference concept. So I think yeah, you had Sam on recently to discuss that side. So that's the side that we're working on Frax with. But then on our side is basically the launcher platform, the UI, like the technology there in terms of like how do you launch an agent. That's what we'll be building out.
That's fantastic. And when it comes to really like launching these agents and having them in the IQ ecosystem, like I would assume like a lot of your target audience right now is really developers of these agents.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you, because you previously mentioned that these agents can really operate in sort of like an ecosystem with each other, where one can be for bridging and another one for something else. Like, how do you envision that to unfold, considering that right now there's so many agents being launched? Like, what if there's like 10 agents launched for bridging? Like, how do you envision the ecosystem to start building and becomes a sustainable ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be similar, right? In the sense that there are thousands and thousands of agents being launched right now, but there's also thousands of tokens being launched on like Uniswap, for example, or like there's thousands of everything being launched. So I think you're gonna have a ton of stuff being launched, and as usual, I think like the best stuff will rise to the top. I think we're gonna see like the stuff that gets the most usage. And one of the things that's gonna be unique about us is that we're not just working with like just independent developers. There will be independent developers for sure launching stuff, but we also are planning partnerships. Like, for example, Frax, they're going to be launching their first AI, their
Mhm.
first tokenized agent through ATP. So that's something we're excited about. So hopefully we'll see like Frax, we'll see, well, not hopefully, Frax is confirmed, but hopefully other protocols as well. Hopefully like Curve and Convex and other cool stuff like that. So we could see like a lot of different DeFi protocols bringing their ecosystems to ATP. And we'd love to, work with DeFi protocols. Like if anybody's listening, definitely, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or me personally as well. We'd love to get you guys on board. So I think kind of how we envisioned like to ensure success in the DeFi realm is a lot of that is ensuring that we attract the best developers. And the way to attract that is I think we need the capability for that. So I think that's what's going to set us apart. Like the capabilities don't exist. Like it's very tricky to build like something like that with the existing solutions. Like it's really not set up for that. Like, the features are like the token unlocks for like live streaming and stuff like that. Like I think one of the token unlocks could be something like a staking system.
Mhm.
We use the same staking system with IQ, it's high IQ. It's the same system as VEFXS and VECRV. So, and Convex is a similar system as well. So, like something that could even be an unlock for the agents that are developed. using ATP. So we kind of thinking of different kind of incentives and unlocks as well.
Got it. That's some amazing incentives. So like in the end, it's about building that sustainable community and that active community that continues building these agents that, compared to the rest of the world, compared to at least most of the rest of the space, these agents are actually providing value and they're actually making life a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's going to be key is like to make these because I feel like there's just so much more potential in agents. Like right now, we're kind of in the. I would compare it to like in DeFi, we had the DeFi summer where we had everyone launching like food tokens like YAM and stuff. And like back then, it was kind of like just hype, and everyone was like, okay, is this like just going to be like meme coins and like, or like NFTs? But like over time, it became like sometimes people now are saying that agents are just going to be like meme coins or ICOs. It's just going to be a fad. I think the current wave of agents is a bit of a fad in that sense, but I don't think agents are a fad. Like this is just the first iteration. So like DeFi was not a fad. Like if YAM was a fad, DeFi wasn't a fad, right? So that's the way I would put it. So I think that's what we're going to see with agents as well.
Yeah, but that's an excellent point. Like even if we compare it to like where AI, at least the public AI was out like 15 months ago and the stage it was in and where it is now, like it's kind of safe to assume that agents will exponentially only improve from here. And we'll see all these different use cases that make our life better. And oftentimes we might not even notice that there's an agent.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we're excited about. So like I think the agent tokenization platform, even like in the time, like in the next couple of months, we'll probably like have new features that we didn't even envision. Like one of the things that's kind of experimental that I'm really excited about that could be interesting is like we can actually see these agents move into the real world if we integrate with robotics. So that's something that's kind of like a little bit further out, but definitely something that I'm really excited about. It's like I think like with Optimus and like with with the robots rolling out, I think you could see some integrations. And I think that there's a lot of aspects that not only for DeFi, but the sovereignty aspect could be really interesting, like the composability basically. Because the idea of building on top of other agents, I think, is something that new that ATP is going to bring to the table. So even if you are going at things from an entertainment perspective, I think we're going to unlock some really new, interesting capabilities and things that people can do.
So sorry, but like, can you please elaborate a bit more, like, on the composability aspect and like, what are you working on there?
Yeah. So basically, because right now, like for example, you can build protocols on top of other protocols, like in general with blockchain, right? Like we have Convex, which is like completely built on top of Curve. So like stuff like that can only really exist if you know the outputs are going to be stable. Like for example, like with AI, one of the big struggles is that right now, if you go on and you ask ChatGPT like the same question multiple times, like you might, even with the exact same software, exact same specs, you will likely get a different answer.
Yeah.
So then, and also if you run different hardware, there can be different answers as well. So one of the challenges is going to be to standardize that. So that's one of the things that we're working with Frax. But what that unlocks is once you have that, is that you can have true composability, like the same way that people can build on top of Curve. Because the reason why you can build on top of Curve is that you know the outputs are going to be the same. You know that the assets, if they send it, like the smart contracts, if you send assets, that is all going to be constant. So what we need for AI composability is to have that on chain. Like we need people to be able to know that there's a shared state, basically. So that's what we're kind of working on building out, and that's what's going to allow for that explosion of people building on top versus isolated coins.
Got it. And like, but eventually for that, especially right now, how cluttered the space and how noisy the space is with agents. Um, what do you think, like right now, are the first things to maybe we start seeing to start disappearing in agents before we move into these kind of agents that are like what you are saying, that you can build on top of other agents and you can use what has already been built and the infrastructure and to have more mass adoption of that? Like, do you envision that to happen in the coming months, or maybe we have a bit of a down in the agent market for a bit and then it goes skyrockets back up? Like, how do you envision the market movement when it comes to AI agents?
In terms of the market movement, it's tough to say because I think right now we're in that stage where everything is brand new, so like everything is hot. People are coming out with agents all the time, and there's two different models, right? So there's the platforms versus the agents themselves. That's completely different models of business models. And then you're going to also have within that, obviously, there's going to be agents that have kind of unique abilities. Like I think there was one that's pretty interesting. Like there was an agent built on Polymarket that gives you data on betting. So like that's
Poly,
still on, yeah. It's a polytrader. So like there's still like ones that are right now they're still focused on like data, but I think you're gonna have agents that earn like real money. Like I think some of the basic functions that we could see come pretty quickly would be like stuff like staking. So like for example, like if you stake, you stake your CVX FXS for example, or your FXS with VFXS. One of the challenges is you have to go physically claim, you got to claim it, your rewards, you got to make sure to stake it again. And then that takes quite a bit of time. And like, you're not going to do that like, let's say you have $1 million, your interest is going to be pretty high, like, especially on Fractal and like any of these OP Superchain blockchains, the transaction costs are actually very low. So you should be compounding that maybe daily, maybe even hourly if you've got to make $1 million, for example. You really should be compounding that really quickly on many, many times. But the challenge right now is that, if you have $1 million, usually you're running a protocol, you're running a treasury, you're pretty busy. So like, I think that could be one of the first things because it's a relatively simple thing. It's literally just claiming, staking again. But right now that doesn't really exist. So I think you need like kind of an AI platform, even for something like that could be really beneficial. Like having an agent for that could save a ton of time. That's kind of one of the things that like helped us ideate is that we managed to bring down treasury, which has about $45 million in assets. And like, we were kind of realizing like, cause we kind of all get together, like every 2 weeks or like every month. And even then, like, we're not doing stuff quickly enough. Like we should be compounding more often. And there's a lot of people like that, at an institutional level, like at a DAO level, but also at an individual level where it may not, and like, especially with like Superchain, like it does make sense to compound a lot. Cause like if it's 10 cents to do a transaction or even like 50 cents, even if you've got like $5,000 worth of assets staked, you probably should be compounding more often. So I think that could be one of the basic things. One of the things that so as we expand from Fractal to other chains, like the entire OP super chain, bridging is going to be a huge component because one of the things we're all seeing in DeFi is this idea of app chains. Like we're seeing Uniswap launch their own chain. We're seeing tons of apps wanting to build their own token economy, build their own chain. And the problem this brings is that if you want the best yield, you're going to have to bridge between chains, which, is a bit of a hassle, especially at the rate that we're going. Like we're going to have one of the big things people are worried about is liquidity fragmentation, where you're going to have liquidity across a bunch of different chains. Swapping is going to be hard as an individual to bridge between chains and swap, manage the gas tokens, manage all of that, like making sure that you have the gas token as well and the asset. It is a lot of work,
it is a lot.
especially, and it's only going to increase, right, if we have more and more chains. So that's the other area where I think AI agents are going to be really important is handling that bridging, which again is not exactly like super complicated because like we all have to do it, but so anyone can kind of learn it, but it takes a lot of time. You have to watch a lot of things. So if you have an agent that's actually independent of the devs and you can trust it and it's on chain, the same way that we trusted DEX to do a swap, we could trust an AI agent to handle this bridging for us. So I think that's another avenue which would come quickly.
Yeah, I mean that's an excellent example actually, because in the end, like when you have agents, as you previously mentioned, the poly market one, the poly trader, it's still owned by the devs. So you're
Hmm.
still kind of relying on someone else over there. But in this case, it's like, okay, you could properly trust the agent just as you would trust the DEX.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how we see things evolving. And then, I think like that's why it's smart. Like what they're doing is like they're doing it on an informational level. Like you would talk to the agent and get the data and then make the trades yourself. So
Yeah.
even at the, I think at the earliest levels of this, like the ATP platform, what would happen is like For example, like it would tell you to compound and then you would sign for the transaction. For example, like even that, those reminders would be helpful. And like this would be a little bit of a step forward. And then I think once this is fully realized, like I think probably post North Star, so that's one of the things that Frax is working on. Then we can really get it fully autonomous to the point where like all you're doing is telling it is to compound, and you can trust it to do that and to find you the best yield. Like you chat with it like conversational UI versus the other aspect of it, not just the time involved, but the complexity, like having to understand everything. In terms of the staking transactions, approval transactions, all of that is like, quite time consuming, and then also complexity. And if we can reduce that, that's the other aspect. If you can really reduce that complexity, that can bring on tons and tons of people. Because right now, to the earlier point about like, DeFi is relatively small usage. The stats are like it's about 7 million monthly users of DeFi. 600 million people hold crypto. So that part of crypto is doing really well. Like we are reaching mass adoption really of crypto, but we really have a long way to go. Like that's a very small percentage of people who hold crypto are involved in DeFi. And we believe a lot of that is due to the complexity, which is increasing actually due to like, people launching new chains, new protocols.
Course, in the sense of like DeFi is just one aspect of crypto where complexity is increasing. But even if you look at the other sub niches, sub industries of crypto, like complexity, especially communication aspect of most companies and what they do and everything, it's pretty complex for outsiders to understand. Like you, even sometimes when you're in the space for years, you're like, what is going on here? Like, what is actually going on here?
Exactly. That's like the classic joke in DeFi is like you got to lock in, like all of crypto Twitter is like you got to lock in, spend 20 hours a day to like ensure that you get the best yields and you find the best farms and like you don't miss out. And it's like that's not gonna you're not gonna get past 7 million people if that's the requirement. Like if you need to spend like that's the funny part, like because like a lot of people like they think of DeFi as passive, but it's not. We're not yet at that passive level. Like there's a lot of things that you have to do. Like for example, if the protocol, if they move chains, you have to make sure to do that. You have to make sure to move your stake or to earn points, or like if you're like a uni token holder and they launch uni chain, then you have to do a lot of work. And like that's kind of always happening, and you have to stay up to date on all of that stuff. So it really isn't that passive where like an average person can just do this like as like the same way that they would put their money into like their bank account and put it into like T-bills or savings account. Like DeFi is much more complex than that. And then it's interesting because people have tried to simplify DeFi, but usually that's through CeFi, which is what we don't want, which is like where it's completely centralized and where they're giving up control the same way that they've done with the banks. And then we're kind of in the same place that we were before, which is all kind of pointless. So I think a much better solution is to have AI agents perform those tasks instead of having like a financial advisor. Like that's the concept basically, right? In the traditional finance world, people would have a financial advisor that handles all of this for them. I think that we could have DeFi agents handle these tasks for them in a way that they can trust. There's no, ulterior motive of the agent, like, or you can see the ulterior motive of the agent and people can audit it and all of that. So I think that's going to be the solution for bringing DeFi to the masses.
Yeah, in the end, it's the agent is the one that connects all this massive variety of tools that is out there. It's like a connection layer, if we see it from that perspective. It connects everything that is built out there in one simple interface, which is probably the best way to do it and the most straightforward.
Exactly.
And I'm really curious since right now you're releasing also an AI for Fractal, like for the chain as well. I'm really curious, like, first of all, on one side of that question is like, where do you see the AI for Frax evolving? And on, I would assume, like, I actually know, like, after the conversation with Sam, it's also mostly focused in the DeFi side. But beyond that, uh, since you mentioned also that you're focused on further expansion on the Optimism Superchain and actually going for the other chains, do you plan to go beyond DeFi when it comes to these agents, or for now you're just staying DeFi concentrated? Because on the super chain we have also a lot of chains that are not specifically DeFi.
Yeah, so I think the initial properties will bring a lot of value to DeFi, so that's why it's a focus on DeFi in that sense. But the capabilities and the properties of the chain will also be useful for very much other things as well. Like, I think the same way that like it could be interesting to build on DeFi, like it could be interesting to build agents on top of the existing agents. Like, I think that's going to be one of the things that'll be exciting. So I think like if you have an agent, like I think you're going to see interactions between like kind of non DeFi agents. Like you could see, for example, like Polytrader, like something like that, where it's informational. Maybe you could have another agent that uses that data to transact, for example. So you could have integrations between DeFi and non-DeFi agents. I think also like there's also a really fun aspect that I want to bring up, which is like the sovereignty is fun. Like we kind of joke about it as like the AI Declaration of Independence. Like we need these AIs to actually be independent. Like I think the next level of memes is going to be like having the AI tokens like actually trade, having them actually like manage the assets, like where the people are working with the AI rather than like the AI just being owned by the people, like the developers. I think it's going to kind of unlock a whole new set of use cases, a whole new set of like properties. Like, I think just from a fun point of view, it's going to be a lot more fun. Like, it's kind of boring to me, at least. Like, I think it's kind of boring, like just having these bots that like they can crack jokes, but like I think like we need to go just from managing memes to like managing assets and the memes, right? Like we can combine like and like you could see some interesting stuff, right? Like for example, like what if the agent could just run a meme contest independently? Like it can completely run community initiatives that are like trustworthy. Like there's always like a lot of people are always a little skeptical of some of these contests and things. I kind of wish they were run by agents instead of having them run by like people. Like sometimes people are like, oh, this guy's just selecting his friends to win, stuff like that. Like if we have an agent doing that stuff, it could be pretty interesting. So I think there's a lot of properties. I think one of the things is that this is going to be like the same way that this is going to create a lot of downstream stuff. Like the same way that everyone uses MetaMask,
Yeah.
we feel like the thing that's going to like take MetaMask. Probably when they started it, they probably didn't think like every single person is going to use MetaMask to interact, or almost every single person, like Wallet Connect and all of that, right? So that kind of helped build like the foundation. We think that like this IQ AI and the ATP platform is going to be like that in a way. Like the idea of like the wallet killer is not necessarily going to be a wallet. It'll probably be an AI agent. So that's kind of another interesting aspect. So I think there's going to be a lot of downstream stuff that we haven't even thought of that comes from this unique capabilities that we're going to build.
Yeah, it's just about starting and then like going with the snowball effect that it's gonna create. And then I completely see like your perspective there. Like the wallet killer is probably not gonna be a wallet because in the end, it doesn't make any sense if it's still a wallet. So,
Exactly.
but it makes perfect sense if it's an agent. And the thing is, even tools that for us are pretty native, like MetaMask or Phantom or whatever of these wallets are, they're still pretty complex for a lot of newer users. And it gets more and more complex the more down the rabbit hole of crypto you go. So I completely understand your argument over there. And is there like I have one more question actually. Like, is there anything else that maybe I should have asked you about the AI agents or what you're building in general with the ATP that maybe I've missed?
I think you've pretty much covered everything. I think the only other aspect maybe would be, I think more onto the point of like where we see things going. I think there is a lot of potential. I think, yeah, to add on to kind of your last question is like, I think maybe going really into the long term, I think we could see that these agents could also operate like first in DeFi and crypto, I think first, but I think we could reach a point where they actually move into the physical world. Like I think you could have the agents run on like robots, for example. So like especially like this is a little bit. I think initially it'll be kind of a marketing BD kind of thing. Like the robots, like I don't know if you've ever been to the Sphere. The Sphere is like this huge venue in Las Vegas, yeah, with like this huge screen. But they also have like these 6 humanoid robots that are a part of like as you go to the waiting area, and people absolutely love it. Like there's like 40 people around each of these robots try to talk to it, try to interact with it. Like people really love it. And like we're seeing like the explosion of these robots being used in like um like coffee shops. Like there's robots doing coffee shops and stuff like that in San Francisco and in Asia as well. So in like Japan, for example. So I think like you could actually have agents moving to the physical world. Like the agents could operate robots, for example. Like you could have like like people maybe like if you had like this is kind of going way into the future, but like let's say you have thousands of these robots, like you could have a community take on actions to like build stuff in the real world. Like I think that's where we're gonna have kind of like the ease of software development move into the real world. Like the same way that you can build an app, like people are gonna like and you can deploy software, like you're gonna be able to like ship like a robot doing tasks. So like you're gonna have like a robot and you're gonna be like the robot can like fix a road or like build a house or like stuff like that. I mean, I know this is like pretty far out, but I think that's interesting to discuss kind of like where things are gonna go in the long term future.
But if you see it, it kind of looks logically as a step that eventually will happen. Even like right now, because in general, the blockchain space is way earlier on AI agents than
Hmm.
any other space out there. So maybe even like before, like how I see it, also from my perspective, is like eventually once the blockchain space as the most cutting edge technology, and since we accept pretty much everything that comes and we work with it, once that goes to a certain extent, I'm pretty sure we'll also see mass adoption in some other industries, like business wide, and then we can, like, then it would be. How it is, at least in my head, it might be pretty cool to have like robots and agents around us. That might be really cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's where we're going. Like, because once we reach mass adoption, like really anything is possible. Exactly. Like, because what blockchain does allows, it allows for composability, it allows for people to do business together. It allows for people to build businesses on top of each other. It's kind of like bringing the app store to like everything, right? And it's instead you don't have to pay a 30% tax to Apple, so you can actually build what you want. There's no TOS. You can really like you could build what you like, and exactly like you explained, like with blockchain, it's exciting because you can kind of expand into any industry. Like we're seeing like the AI industry that popped up very quickly. We're seeing blockchain really jump in quickly and build people building all kinds of great stuff. Like even at this entertainment level, there is tons of dub talent and like a lot of people building in AI already. So I think once we build those composability, it's really going to be endless in terms of what people build, and we're really excited about that. Yeah, so definitely check out iqai.io. I forgot to give up the URL. Well, that's our URL, so definitely check that out. Like we have a wait list, like you can sign up to stay informed. We'll also, of course, be sharing a lot of stuff on Twitter, but definitely follow us there.
Yeah, go ahead and check out IQAI dot what was it? Sorry,
AQAI.io.
.io. So I'm actually gonna link that in the description as well, so you can just click over there and check it out over there. And there's the waiting list, so I hope you get it. And subscribe to the waiting list.
No, don't worry. Everyone will get on the waiting list. Basically, it's just to tell you
Bro,
once it's launched. So but make sure to sign up so that as soon as it launches, you can start building ASAP.
fantastic. Well, looking forward to exploring that. Navin,
Awesome.
thank you for all these insights and actually the amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.